XR women or our leadership. Use a raised hand if you have any questions. And please, most importantly, connect with others in here. Let's collaborate and let's help make a better future for everybody in here through this technology. We want to thank our sponsors, Engage and Frame, for the persistent spaces that we typically will be meeting in. We have other sponsors like the American Medical XR Association, Metaverse, XR Connected, AWE. We've done a lot of different partnerships and things with them. Serval, Looking Glass, Immersive Learning and Research Network, and our student chapter, Ringling College of Art and Design. And we want to take just a moment to think of them and hope that they're doing well. They're in the midst of all the weather with the hurricanes and most recently Milton. So thinking of Jenna Watts, Marty Murphy, our student chapter leader and our faculty rep, and hope that they're doing well. And moving along, we also want to welcome our new members. This week we have new members from the US, Canada, Ireland, and UK. Now we're trying to get quickly through our announcements so we have plenty of time for our speakers. So I'm going to ask you, instead of speaking out to the group today, please just make an introduction in the chat. And I believe I heard from a little bird that we may be having some students from St. Peter's University. Welcome if you are here with Tricia Giannakis. And please just, we have a Slack channel and we communicate there during our events. So please, you know, introduce yourself in that channel. Next, we have programming, your thoughts for 2025. So our theme in 2025 is Thrive in 2025 with our an upcoming event we have, and just through the year. We would really like to get your thoughts on programming, on speakers. We're already working on this, and we've actually already booked up speakers through, I think, even more than the first quarter of 2025. So please, if you have any ideas, any speakers, get that to us as quick as possible. You can scan that QR code, and there'll probably be a link as well in the Slack channel. Next slide. Save the date. This is the event I was talking about. Thrive in 2025 is our theme. We're so excited about this. We are creating an event where we have hands-on workshops. We're going to have a wellness lounge. We have currently some of the workshops that we're going to have is Robin Mulder is going to be doing a Grow Kit workshop. I'm working on a Rise Above workshop. Laura Kuzumoto is doing a workshop on how to make successful healthcare apps, because we are going to be there at the same time as the International VR Healthcare Hackathon. So some of our themes will be related to healthcare, not all of them, but some of them. So please come join us. Stay tuned. We're rapidly trying to get all this put together because it's coming upon us very quickly. It's going to be held at the Ringling College of Art and Design in Sarasota, our student chapter. So woohoo for them. Thank you. All right, next slide. So if you have not already, or even if you have, join our YouTube channel. We have a lot of learning events every Wednesday in these spaces, but we have also been recording them. So if you have missed one, or if you want to go back and just get the details, please visit that YouTube channel. Next slide. I just wanted to mention in particular, we have now the videos up for the XR Women Awards that took place at AWE in 2024, back in June. And there are there's a whole playlist of them. We want to thank Cecilia for helping us with that and getting those put up. She recorded them and she actually edited them. We've got like 9 different videos. So we're going to be highlighting each of those in our newsletter. You may have already seen those, but thank you. Shout out to Cecilia. I don't know if I should even try to pronounce her last name, Lashiel Fari, but she's been a great supporter of XR Women and is a member as well. Next, we also want to just mention, if you haven't been here, to our museum, gallery, and research corner. Amazing place in Frame. Kay Gillory currently is in the gallery with a program called What is Immersivism? We want to thank her for her great work in there, and we want to thank Jenna Lambert also. She's our curator. So amazing place. You can also, in the bottom picture there, you can see we have pictures of all of the speakers we've had. So you'll be amazed. We're upcoming on 200 events in the beginning of 2025. So we've had a lot of amazing speakers in there in these events. Business Showcase, please visit our Business Showcase. It's an open, persistent space that is available 24/7. You can go in there. It's hosted and Engage. Just go to sessions and put in the session ID, MRGPL. We remember it as Margie Purple. You can see recorded 1-minute elevator spiels by each of the, I think it's 9 different women businesses that are in there. So visit that. Next slide. We also, you've heard about this, but we just want to really push these pens. They're limited edition and there's not too many of them left. Get yours for $35, and that $35 is also helping support these programs that we're putting on each week. So you can get to it from our website or the link. I'm going to ask Julie to talk about this slide. Julie Smithson.
Thank you. Thanks, Christine. And good morning, everyone. I know in the past couple of weeks, I've presented a word of some sort that just kind of aligns with the mental health and the digital well-being that we're all going through as we push through this time of exponential growth. And a couple of my words in the past couple of weeks were about balance and grounding ourselves. And, you know, being in this space, innovating for as many years as I have, trying to find this balance is like, it's crazy, you know, find your work-life balance. Well, that's pretty damn hard when things are changing on a daily basis. So what I want to share with you today is to build that confidence around change, that you're okay with disruption and knowing that you yourself is constantly being disrupted by the change that's in our ecosystem right now. So my superpower sometimes is trying to find these tidbits of how to live your best life, how to manage in a way of balancing this this digital life and this ecosystem and the humanics behind it. And today I'm sharing with you to build your confidence around change, with change, that you're okay with it, that you're okay on a daily basis, that things aren't going to be the same way that they were the day before. So that's what I have for today, and hope you all take that away with your own purpose and your own mission. Christine, I'm going to pass it back to you, and let's move on with the rest of our presentation.
Okay, thank you, Julie. So finally, I just want to let you know that next week we have Jennifer Oritz Smash. She's going to speak on she's the founding an amputee community in Horizon, and what a great opportunity to learn about diverse communities. So join us again, same time, same place next week. And with nothing more ado, oh, one more thing. After Jennifer, I should have remembered this, we're gonna have a Halloween networking in 2 weeks. So we will be doing this in Arrival Space, and if you haven't had an opportunity to go into Arrival Space, it's a really fun place to be. So it's going to be themed with Halloween. We're going to network, so come and join us, and we would love to have as many people as possible. So on to Jacki Morie. I'm sorry if I sped through this too quickly, but I just want to give a lot of time for Jacki's presentation. So Karen is going to come up and she's going to transport us to another wonderful place. Thank you. Thanks for joining us today.
Great. Thank you so much, Christine. Okay, everyone, as Christine said, I'm going to take us all to a theater environment where we're going to hear from Jacki. Be patient as we load in. If you land on other people, find another seat, and we'll be setting things up. It'll take just a moment, and then we will get on to the main event of the day, which is our presentation by Jacki Morie. So hang on to your seats because I am taking us over to the other environment now. All right, looks like everybody is making their way in. I'm going to load up Jacki's deck and then I will introduce her. Okay, well, I believe everyone can see the deck here. Great, fantastic. You know, I would be surprised if anybody here does not know who Dr. Jacki Morie is. And it feels a bit odd for me to be introducing her because I've had the good fortune, as have a number of others here in the room, to share drinks with Jacki by the pool, to hang out with her at the infamous Meta Villa, and to perform in a play with her on stage and in VR at AWE. I played Sophia Mashash's mother, and Jacki played her cool aunt. And so I think maybe we should start calling her the cool aunt of the metaverse. I don't know. But so my point is that Jacki is very familiar, but she's no less legendary. XR Women honored her with the Trailblazer Award in 2022, which is so fitting. And we're very lucky that we have Jacki with us here today to share her deep institutional knowledge and the incredible documentation of the work of early women in XR she is doing. Dr. Jacqueline Ford Morie is a VR pioneering artist and scientist. Starting in 1989, she developed techniques that enabled the creation of meaningful and emotional VR experiences. She has advanced degrees in fine art and computer science. She's a sought-after speaker in the domains of VR, including all forms of immersive media for health, space, art, social impact, and education. She's led many historically significant projects over the past 3 decades in these campaign domains, and she's also incorporated AI as an integral part of many of these projects. Her 2020 co-edited book, The Global Impacts and Roles of Immersive Media, presented important contributions from expert immersive media practitioners in its 22 chapters. Dr. Morie is currently authoring a 2-volume history of virtual reality that will focus on the people who made these new technologies possible. In 2022, Dr. Morie was presented with the AIXR Accenture Lifetime Achievement Award for her pioneering work in VR. In 2024, she received several honors for her decades of VR work, including induction into the inaugural AWE XR Hall of Fame, the Virtual World Society's Legacy NextNet Award, and induction into the ACM SIGGRAPH's prestigious academy. And as I mentioned earlier, XR Women honored Dr. Morie with the Trailblazer Award in 2022. Jacki Morie continues to develop new concepts for immersive media, and she's active in mentoring the next generation of VR practitioners. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Jacki Ford Morie. Woohoo! We're seeing a lot of silent cheering. Okay,
Welcome,
Jacki,
Jacki.
whenever you are ready to please unmute and take it away, and I will move on to the next slide when you're ready. There you go. Oops.
Yeah, I was too
Got it.
heavy on the
Okay.
double clicked. I double clicked. Okay. All right, let's get started. For an introduction, you know, it's often said that VR was dominated by guys and that women didn't have much to do with the early days of VR. And while it is true that we do owe much, are we getting an echo? Guys?
There, I just muted someone.
Thank you. I was getting quite the echo. Okay. Well, it's true that we owe much of the foundational work of creating the original technological underpinnings of VR to people like Ivan Sutherland and Tom Furness and their teams. It wasn't long before women began to make significant contributions to this emerging medium. Among its other offerings, an article from a 1993 Virtual Reality Systems magazine showcased some of the women working in VR at the time. 7 of them were able to get together for this portrait to accompany the article. Note Anne Laskell-Harville holding her new baby in this picture. I want to show you what happened when the publication worked its magic on the group portrait. Next slide, please. Well, no more baby. Maybe because the baby was a boy, who knows? But it does show kind of what we were up against at the time. As part of my doctoral dissertation, I did an in-depth research project to chronicle the first 100 artistic VR works that had been made up to that time, which was 2007. Once I had them all in a spreadsheet, I discovered that of these 100 works, 65 of them were created, led, or produced by women. This was a surprise given the prevailing thought that VR was by and for guys. Next slide, please. Still, in 1993, you could write the names of almost every woman working in VR on one napkin, as Suzanne Weghorst did here. Besides artistic input, where the content and approach to the new medium was often groundbreaking and innovative, women contributed in many other ways, from hardware to software to promoting to evangelizing to writing to envisioning and making this future that was about to break loose. As my time here is limited, I can only start to tell you some of their stories, but as you will see, there are many that need to be known and recognized. Some have been honored by Women in XR, some in Oz inaugural XR Hall of Fame, some by ACM SIGGRAPH, and some have yet to be honored. But without these women, we would be thinking very differently about VR because they helped steer it to a more creative path. For this talk, I'm focused on the late 1980s through the very early 2000s. In the last 10 years, I'm delighted to say there are many, many more following in these original footsteps. But today, I'm celebrating that very early creativity in this new medium of VR and invite you to recognize and honor the impactful presence of these women.
Jacki, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but your audio is cutting out and getting very faint. I don't know if there's anything you can do about that. That's better just now. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. Well, we'll keep going. I don't know why it would be cutting out, but we'll keep going. Let's see. So these women, many of them had families, and in spite of, or maybe because of this, they made incredible contributions to the beginnings of what became to be known as VR. One helped revise an entire industry, launching a product with a 2-week-old baby in tow. One helped us realize our true lobster self and made the first avatar face. One helped us see better. One brought touch into VR. One created the first spatialized. Sorry, I'm getting feedback again. I'm not sure what happened. Should I wait for the slides, Karen?
Yeah, just give us a second, Jackie. It looks like somebody just took over a control. So just bear with Karen for a
Wow.
second. She's just switching it back.
Okay,
Wow. There you go.
there we
It's
go.
back
Thank
again.
you.
Sorry
Okay.
about that.
So, and many of these other women made VR artworks unlike anything the world had ever seen. So I'm going to cover 8 of these individuals today in a bit more depth because I don't have a lot of time, but other stories can and will follow. Here you'll meet artists, engineers, inventors, scientists, researchers, and more who influenced our immersive futures. Let's get started. Next slide, please. So we'll start with Linda Jacobson. Linda's start in the VR world happened in 1989 when she began reporting on NASA's 3D binaural audio and VR research for recording industry magazines. In 1990, she co-produced the first conference for artists using VR and digital media called Cyber Arts, as well as founding Northern California's first virtual reality user group. In 1990, Linda became Silicon Graphics VR evangelist. What a title. And introduced VR to thousands of business, academic, medical, and government leaders. This photo of her was from about 98, when Fast Company sent a photographer to document the life of a VR evangelist. Next slide. The Cyber Arts Conference she started led to her groundbreaking book, Cyber Arts. Soon she began working with VR developers, covering the work of anybody who was anybody in VR at the time. Linda was also a co-founding editor of Wired magazine and served as Wired's Virtual Worlds editor. Her articles in Wired about do-it-yourself VR led to the publication of her book, Garage Virtual Reality, sold with a floppy disk of VR code. Next slide. During her time as SGI's evangelist, Linda formed and organized the International VR Experts Group to encourage cross-functional collaboration and bring together engineers, developers, and scientists to form integration partnerships. I remember that inaugural meeting. And while at SGI in 1996, she also wrote and produced an award-winning documentary on enterprise VR called 6 Degrees of Freedom: Designers and Engineers Put Virtual Reality to Work. Next slide, please. And as if this was not enough, she also found time to join a multimedia arts ensemble managing the all-woman band Cuckoo, and becoming an early motion capture performance artist touring the country as RGB. Cuckoo worked closely with members of the Grateful Dead, as well as Brian Eno and other electronic musicians. For a while, it led to Linda being tagged as the Queen of VR. Linda was the personality and the voice of Cuckoo's 3D digital band member Rigby, RGB, who would banter with the band between songs and interact with the audience. The movement of Rigby's lips was controlled by the amplitude of Linda's voice, which ran through a vocal effects processor, and everything that happened with Rigby was spontaneous and in the moment. Later, in 2001, Linda co-founded a VR studio called Glasshouse Studios with cave inventor Carolina Krusniara and fellow VR pioneers Steve Hanstead and Christian Gruhl. Next slide, please. Since 2020, since 2009, Linda's research interests have centered around VR therapeutics and elder care with multiple successful company products and launches. She is one of the first to bring VR into the elder care communities starting in 2015, and has since introduced VR to many care providers and elders. And for this work, she was inducted into the National Honor Society for Gerontologists. In 2022, Linda joined Haptex to help contribute to the growing and advanced use of touch simulation in virtual reality and robotics, and to help the XR community define, implement, and share best practices in haptics. Let's give it up for the original queen of VR. So, next slide, please. Let's see what we got here. Okay, yeah, I know it's going to be hard to do the applause in the virtual world, but I see your emojis. So next we have Tomoko Theo. Tomoko Theo has been at the forefront of virtual world creation using both VR and AR from the very first moments it was possible to work with these mediums. She's been prolific in the advancement of XR as an artistic medium. She was the creative director of Steven Spielberg's Starlight World, a private online community for critically ill children, which started in the mid-1990s. Next slide, please. Her artworks are numerous, from her early piece Beyond Manzanar, done with creative partner Zara Hushmand, using the then new VRML or Vermal platform. Next, that was a precursor to XR. Next slide, please. Beyond Manzanar puts the participant inside a Japanese concentration camp from World War II and shows how people lived then. But the experience eventually turns into what happens, I'm sorry, when the Iranian-American dream dies decades later. Next slide, please. Beyond Manzanar was followed by works such as The Travels of Mariko Horo. Next slide, please. And the Berlin Wall piece, Reconstructing the Wall, which won an IBM Innovation Prize. Tomoko was also the first VR artist to be collected by a museum. In 2002, the San Jose Museum of Art bought Beyond Manzanar. And this has led to some very interesting reflections about how a museum can keep such works from becoming obsolete. Tomoko, in fact, does much of the updating of her own museum works. Next slide, please. She has also created a stunning number of AR works and what she calls interventions. And in fact, there's almost always a political or social message in her art. She was also one of the Google Tilt Brush artists in 2017. She's had significant influence on computer design with her 1983 to 1985 concept for the Thinking Machine Corporation's Connection Machine. She doesn't take credit for making the computer, only for making it look very cool. I think we need the next slide. Let's see. Yep, there's that connection machine. Kind of a beauty thing. She's been honored in numerous ways this year, finally, with the XR Hall of Fame and ACM SIGGRAPH's highest art award, the Distinguished Artist Award for Lifetime Achievement in Digital Art. So let's have some nice emojis for this amazing immersive artist. And then we will go to the next slide. Okay, back up one. Oh, no, you're going forward. So I think we need to be on slide 15. Let's see. Keep going. I think that's it. Is that slide 15? I can't read the numbers from here. Okay, so now we have Ann Lasko-Harville. She came from an industrial design background and became the chief designer of data suits at the early VR company VPL, founded by Jaron Lanier and Tom Zimmerman. It was a tight-knit team at VPL with Ann and her husband, Young Harville, and others, all working on different needs for the emerging VR system. Next slide, please. Ann and Young both produced concept drawings of what VR experiences might be like. Ann was responsible for multiple implementation aspects at VPL, while Young actually created the modeling software, which became Swivel 3D, that everyone used to create models for VPL, and Anne used it to create the first avatar for VR. Not only did Anne make that first avatar, when Jaron mentioned to a visitor that you could be a lobster in VR, he turned to Anne, who had to figure out an avatar that had non-human characteristics. As claws were the most quintessential aspect of a lobster, the participant arms were mapped onto those digital claws. The rest of the appendages moved algorithmically based on the main movements. Okay, next slide, please. Yep. In the late 1980s, Anne spearheaded the development of VPL's Reality Built for 2, or RB2, whole body VR suit based on her industrial design background. RB2, a groundbreaking virtual reality tool, was developed to enable multi-user interactions in virtual spaces. She also designed new user interface paradigms and devices for network virtual reality, always with an eye to the human who'd be part of the program. Excuse me. Let me get some more water. Next slide, please. Anne Laska was also the woman with the baby in the group portrait I showed at the start of the talk. Her family was a big part of the day-to-day team at VPL. Let's recognize Anne Laska Harville. So sorry, people. Give me 1 minute here. Let's see if I can get this cough under control. And in the meantime, we can go to the next slide. Okay, this should be slide. This should be slide 19.
Yes, that's it.
Let me double check. Yep. Okay. Now, Beth Marcus may not be a name you recognize, but her engineering work goes back to the late 1980s. With degrees in mechanical engineering from MIT and a PhD in biomechanics from Imperial College London, in 1988, she founded a company called Exos to build a better glove for VR and robotics, which soon found even more applications. Now, in the late 1980s, there certainly were VR gloves out there used for both navigation and grasping virtual objects. But Beth's version, which had a unique exoskeleton you can see in the picture, provided force feedback. In other words, you could actually feel something of the virtual object you were interacting with in the VR experience. Her dexterous handmaster brought haptics into focus in immersive media, and now we knew we needed this. We're still trying to get haptics right today, following in Beth's footsteps, or more accurately, her hand grasps. Next slide, please. In addition to her company Exos, she created force feedback systems for games. So, for example, the Power Stick and the Sidewinder force feedback joysticks that were sold to a multinational technology company in 1996. There was also work for NASA, such as the force feedback exoskeleton called the Arm Master that was used on an SGI computer with a head-mounted display for a simulation of the space shuttle arm that let you feel the edges and surfaces and push against objects. Next slide, please. There were many uses for these haptic gloves, and she was one of the first to implement them. They were excellent for measurement and for evaluation of fingers and combined hand and wrist forces that could be used for rehabilitation and to determine fatigue. Next slide, please. After decades as a serial founder and mentor to many startups, Beth now works at Amazon's robotic division, where she's been working on this robot system, Robin. Working with Amazon has allowed her to see the impact of her work firsthand and ways that robots are deployed and gainfully employed all over the world. As part of this work, Beth continues to mentor young engineers and women to innovate and create the future. Beth Marcus is an acknowledged expert in the hand-device interface space and a leader in the field of virtual reality, and definitely a name you should know. And there you have an introduction to Beth Marcus. Next, slide 23. Yep. Okay, here's another name for most of you, Angela Pate. Angela and her spouse Millard founded a company called Micron Green in the 1980s for the architecture and building industries, calculating the stresses and potential failures for major buildings in the southeastern United States. There was a lot of mathematics involved, like finite element analysis, but little in the way of visualizations of the endless numbers of that output. Along came computer graphics, and Micron Green became a leader in using this new technology to help their clients understand what effects their design decisions would have on the structural integrity of their builds. The infrastructure between engineering and software and computer graphics flying logo software of the day was not yet in place in the 1980s, and Micron Green wrote deep-level translators and drivers to get the two systems talking. Much of their work was integrated into Autodesk's emerging cyberspace development kit, making it more useful and robust. Now, I was fortunate to work on a groundbreaking project with Angela and her team in 1990 to create a virtual reality system called the Virtual Environment Navigator, funded in part by the state of Florida and done at the UCF Institute for Simulation and Training in Orlando. The software was launched at the 1992 SIGGRAPH, where Angela gave workshops and presentations, as well as active demonstrations at a booth on the expo floor, all with a 2-week-old baby in tow. Isn't that an incredible feat? Next slide, please. The Virtual Environment Navigator would allow 2 or more people to enter into the CAD model space in VR and discuss and change designs in real time. And this blew their clients' minds. This is me working on the development of Navigator with a custom interface wand that I built. The system was also used by the Boston Cyber Arts Group to make a walkthrough of ancient Aztec temples for the 1993 SIGGRAPH Emerging Tech venue. Next slide, please, 25. A unique thing about Micron Green was that they introduced their clients to the use of paint systems to enhance their 3D visualization models. So it wasn't just all 3D. After modeling in 3D and rendering, Angela would use those paint programs to lay in sunsets in both the sky and reflected, sometimes impossibly, in the windows. In what she calls a mesmerizing process, she would push the pixels back and forth for days, making sure that sunset was on every pane of glass. This was really radical back then, and their customers loved it. This image on the right won the True Vision Art Contest second place winner in 1989. True Vision was the company that made the graphics boards that most paint systems used then. Micron Green was extremely successful with VR Navigator and their other technology offerings over the next decades, a very successful early VR company. Next slide, please. Now Angela has added oil paint to her pixels and models, and here you see some of her most recent canvases. Moonscape and still more amazing sunset work. All right, Angela Pate, everybody, a name to remember. Next slide. So next we have Margaret Delinsky. She was one of the talented MFA students in the Electronic Visualization Laboratory program at the University of Illinois at Chicago in the 1990s. Artists there were able to use the newly invented immersive cave system, conceived, built, and patented by Carolina Cruz-Niera, Dan Sandin, and Tom Santi. Margaret made many immersive works using the cave in the 1990s. All were unique in incorporating painterly systems from her symbolic artwork. Her first cave piece included a character who juggled colored spheres and who lived in a room decorated with her own paintings. Next slide, please. Her work Dream Girls showed at SIGGRAPH in 1996 and invited the participant to explore dreaming in a labyrinth and discover paths that led to whimsical worlds where you might ride a seesaw in the clouds or be shaken when you looked into the face of an unfamiliar psyche. This was followed by the work Straight Dope in 1997 and Interiors seen on the right in 1988. Next slide, please. This image shows part of her blue window pane piece from 1999. This was featured at the prestigious Ars Electronica show, and later in the 1990s, she made Blue Window Pane 2. Next slide, please. This image shows a bit from her later piece, 2010, in 2010, called Figuratively Speaking, where the main 3D characters are based on watercolor paintings and have captivating but incomparable voices. Margaret is still doing work in this medium today, making her an artist with one of the longest continuous histories of creating such works. A round of applause for Margaret and her amazing work. All right, next we're going to go to Rebecca Allen. Yep, there we go. Rebecca Allen has served many roles in her career. She was the founder and chair of the UCLA Department of Design Media. She was the director of Nokia Research Centers in Los Angeles and Cambridge, and founder and artist at her own Rebecca Allen Studios. Throughout it all, she's been an explorer of technology and what it could do and say. Starting back in the days when it was difficult for a woman to make inroads into the laboratories that held the keys to the high-end equipment, and also at the same time when the art world itself was not open to women, let alone women creating with technology, she persevered. From her early work at MIT and with the band Kraftwerk, she has constantly pushed the boundaries of what could be done from a distinctly female approach. She was arguably the first to animate a full 3D model of the female form in 1981, when both 3D modeling and computer animation were still being invented. This is a frame from the animation Swimmer, which was done in 1981. Hard to believe. Next slide, please. Once computers got fast enough to handle real-time animation, it was natural for Rebecca to try out virtual reality. Her most memorable VR immersive work is The Bush Soul, done from 1997 to 1999. It was actually a series of 3 works that explored the context of the human being within a virtual environment inhabited by artificial life forms. It incorporated the West African idea that people have more than a single soul, thus the bush soul. Next slide, please. And I should also mention that in last year's Computer Code exhibition at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, the preparatory drawings for her 1974 animated work, Girl Lifting Skirt, were shown. This was done when she was 20 years old and working between Rhode Island School of Design and Brown University, way before any of us had any idea about computer art. For the show, she recreated the original hand-plotted animation. Please give it up for Rebecca Allen and her amazing contributions. All right, next slide. And this is the last in-depth one for today. Let's go to the next slide. But certainly not all. This is Monica Fleischman, who's been working in technological arts since 1980s with her collaborator, architect Wolfgang Strauss. They also played pivotal roles as the founders of Art Plus Com in Berlin. Monica was the recipient of the 2018 ACM SIGGRAPH Distinguished Artist Award for Lifetime Achievement in Digital Arts and was elected to the SIGGRAPH Academy as a research artist that has contributed to the field of interactive media art since the 1980s to the present day. But back to their amazing early VR piece. Next slide, please. The Home of the Brain was an early interactive VR work that showed this new medium as an embodied philosophical debate. The environment contained the thoughts of philosophers, represented as buildings, buildings of thought. They included the philosophers Joseph Weizenbaum, Marvin Minsky, Paul Virilio, and Willem Flusser. Their opposing positions on digital culture became visible and audible as you were inside the environment. A battle of words, a heated debate shown visually. Statements, sentences, and words formed interactive, real-time objects in a landscape that the participant could move through with the help of a data glove for navigation. Fleischman and Strauss explained that their decision to create a full VR piece, like the Home of the Brain in 1990, was driven by the desire to explore this new metaphor of cyberspace, this very new space. How do we interact with such spaces, and what do people, especially philosophers, think of them? Next slide, please. This work won them the Golden Nika of the Prix Electronica in 1990-92. Monica and Wolfgang are still creating new immersive works today. A round of applause for Monica and all of these intrepid pioneers, only a few of which we've been able to cover today. And remember, this is only from the very early days of VR, up to the early 2000s. Next slide, please. I hear that applause. Well, I certainly couldn't go into detail of all the formidable female creators that I know about. This is just a few of them. Well, I could, but we would be here past at least my headset's battery life. But there are many more you should know about. So let's look at some of these names in the next slide, which is a video credits list, if you will, of the many of the women who have brought us to where we are today. So Karen's going to switch us over to the video, and then we're going to come back for the last two slides in the deck. Okay, Karen, take it away. Yeah, that seems like a lot of names, but even as I was doing it, I kept thinking of more. Even after I sent Karen the final video, I was like, I forgot so-and-so, I forgot so-and-so. So I'm going to keep adding to that list. And again, just for the very early days. Maybe we can go back to the last 2 slides, Karen. Look at those great women. Man, love them all.
Um, Give me just a moment here, Jackie. I'm getting back to
Okay.
to the.
So hopefully there were some names you knew, and I would bet a lot of names you didn't know. So, or names you haven't thought of for a long time. But it would be great to get all their stories out there.
Okay, I'm
Okay,
gonna run
so let's
through
go all the way to the end.
all the way
Quick
to the
recap
end.
here.
Yes. And for some reason, it's.
Look at those faces. Look at that baby who's now in his 40s, I think. Wow. Okay, this is a very quick
Fast
recap.
Fast recap. Yes.
Look at that connection machine.
Yes, that was beautiful.
Oh, it was the most beautiful machine. Computers should all look like that instead of these boxes under our desks. Okay, so one back, I believe. All right, so like I said, I haven't gotten through a lot of these stories, but I did want to point you to one article which actually says a little bit about why I think women are so good at this and so imaginative and push the boundaries so much. So this article, which is on ResearchGate, which I didn't realize, I think you can find by going to search for the word crucible. And it actually goes into a few of the ideas of why I think women were so good at this. So if you're interested in that, go for that article. Okay, next is just thanking you all for being here. This interest in this topic is, I'm so delighted by it. I just can't believe how many people are eager to hear these stories. So thank you all for who are continuing to bring us into this remarkable future that VR is kind of launching into. And in some ways, I really feel like this is a birthright that we are coming into today. So thank you all for your attention. I'll be around as long as my battery hangs out. And again, thank you.
Woohoo! Thank you, Jackie. That was amazing.
Some
Wow.
great people there, I'll tell you.
Absolutely, absolutely. What a rich history, and thank you so much for bringing this to us. There's a lot certainly that I didn't know, and I think the same will be true for just about everyone here. But it's important, and so we're grateful to you for sharing these stories with us. Does anyone have a question? If so, feel free to unmute, or you can raise your hand if you're in a headset using the
I would just like
emoji
to
controls
ask,
on your wrist.
I would just like to ask a question about the article because I couldn't get the link. Could I get it like in the chat or in Slack?
You mean for my paper or for
Yes,
the
yes.
I'm not sure how to do that from here, but what do you
I
think,
see that
Karen?
was Ned asking the question. I should be able to share it with her.
Okay.
Thank you
Yeah.
so
So
much.
afterwards. Yes.
Yeah, I don't have it. I don't have it up on any of my sites. I was surprised to find it the other day because I almost forgotten about writing that paper. So I went, oh, this is good because I read it again and I went, it says a lot because there's some reasons why women I think are better at this, and that paper outlines a lot of them.
Great.
Thank you for that.
It looks like Steve Van Loon has a question.
Hello.
Hey, Steve.
Hey. I was wondering if you have any permanent exhibits in VR that you have up online.
Of my work?
Yeah, especially of your work.
Well, Theoretically, my When Pixels Were Precious is still up on VR chat, but for some reason I can't get to it. But yeah, if you, I search and it's not there. It was an official selection of 5Rs last year, 2023. But none of the links take me there. I had my collaborator check and she said it's there. So When Pixels Were Precious by me, which is a very simple recreation of a house that I lived in the early 1980s when I first started doing computer graphics work. And in the house, the first 19 computer graphic images that I made with an Apple II computer, so not many pixels there, but they're displayed throughout the house. And if you go up to each piece, you hear me talking about the piece and why that's the only one that's still live. These VR pieces have a very short half-life, if you will, unless you're like Tomiko and take the time to remake them every few years, or Shar Davies, who's got a team that's remaking hers. It's one of the saddest things about VR, the short shelf life.
Yes, it certainly is. Yeah. Looks like Serene Liminal has a question.
Hi, Jackie.
Hi, all my former students out there.
It was really amazing to see you in person at AWE, and you got all those awards and recognitions and making like the Hall of Fame. That was just incredible and well deserved. But one of the main themes that was kind of being discussed at the AWE this year was around the convergence of like AI and VR. And I just would like to know your thoughts on that.
I don't see any reason why they shouldn't converge. Let's use all the tools we have. I mean, I've been using AI in work since 1990 was a game that I worked on that had an AI component, a mentor that would come in and rescue you if you couldn't get the lessons done. And then throughout my time at the Institute for Creative Technologies, I helped author some of the virtual humans they had. So I just think there's a natural marriage there. And I don't think we've really explored what's possible. Certainly you've got things that you can generate stories and videos and images, but these virtual humans and virtual constructs that could make things so much richer, we're just scratching the surface on those. And I look forward to seeing what people could really do pushing that. So let's get some pushing going on in that domain.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. It's really exciting to think about the possibilities. Another question?
And I should say, if any of you know anybody I've missed from those early time periods, let me know. Like I said, I thought of a couple names. I have pictures in this picture, but I forgot to put some of their names in the scrolling list. And I admit I don't know everybody. I tried to go globally and see what was going on. And some of those stories are really hard to find and to dig out. And some people have not wanted to be in the limelight. So, some people don't want that fame. And also, if we start, at what I call the third wave of VR, which is, when we all got these Rifts and Oculuses, and all of a sudden the field exploded and so many more creators were able to do things. I haven't even started compiling that list. I mean, that thing would have kept us here all day scrolling on some of the new creators. Some of you in the audience and some of you in the audience have actually got a good historical record here too. But, all the new creators, I don't think they're being quite acknowledged because there's no universal place to go and acknowledge them. And we get things like 5Rs. 5Rs is very good for experimental stuff. But the narrative in the media is not about the content really, or the meaning behind these VR works. It's about, oh, how many pixels can we push, or what's the newest patent on this, or who's buying what company. I mean, if I never hear about who's buying one company again, I could be happy for the rest of my life. But it's all about the business of VR, which is good in some ways because it means we have an industry. But I think the creativity is being left behind a little bit in that rush to have an industry. I know it's not easy to make VR with no money, and there's not much funding for artistic events or artistic ideas, but do it. Work on it as you can. You know, some of you in the audience have done that and have had some good success. Keep going. And don't do it for money. Do it for love. Do it for passion. Because the passion is what underscored every one of these women I talked about today. And that passion is what pushes things forward. It's not who earned what money. It's not what your salary was as a CEO or a product launch. It's what is important and meaningful to you, what drives you, and what do you want to see? What kind of worlds, virtual worlds, do you want to visit, live in? You know, those are the things we should be thinking about.
Wow, it's a very inspiring note on which to end the official portion of our event. It is past our 1 p.m. Eastern stop time, and I would like to respect everyone's time, especially Jackie's. So we will call this to a close, but Jacki, if you're willing to stick around a little bit longer and maybe converse informally with folks, you're all welcome to stay for a bit longer. And let's just all join together in thanking Jacki one more time. We were honored to have you here and very much appreciate the education that you gave us today.
Thank you all. It's great to have an audience that's appreciative. All right.